This will really show through in the end, but I'm just trying to make shapes and make marks to where my eyes will pick up on objects, or usually humans the first thing I see, and I always have humans in my pieces, I guess just because story-wise. So I just kind of watch the shapes and see what evolves out of there. I try not to use a brush at first, but I'm going to have to on this. This is just black and Prussian, I think. I'm just keeping it to one color because it'll read better on here. That's not dark. It's going to be hard to do because it's a long, drawn-out process. Again, I'm just trying to see how far I can show you guys at all.
Patrick, how long does it take you from beginning to end on your paintings generally?
One this size would probably be a couple of months, but I'd have a couple more going at the same time. And what takes a long time is once I've loaded it up with kind of all this static image, it'll take me a while to dig out the image. Sometimes looking at it, like I can see better on the video than I can here because it filters out some of the scribble work. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to get all that far, so I'm trying to get more into how I'm doing story-wise. Because to me, it's never about the image. The image comes secondary. It's more picking out. I'll see like one object and start making these connections in the back of my head, and I might see another object. And when the story comes together, then I can alter the composition later. Usually I was just trying to set up some sort of rhythm on the canvas where I'll be able to pick up something. I bought a cheaper canvas too because I wanted to work big so you could see it, but it's not, it didn't have the tooth easily right. But a lot of this, if it gets too noisy, I'll knock it back some, and then I'll just see some of the lines that come through better. And I might pick up like a red instead of a blue just to make a difference between these lines. It's one of those, I've never tried to show anybody because it's how I've always worked. And once I've got rid of most of the white, I can start seeing things. Like that could easily be a head if I decided on that kind of scale. Usually scale is what I'll decide first. If I see a giant head and I just don't want to work that scale, I'll just immediately go past that and look for something else. Mostly it's just seeing things and either going with them or throwing them out immediately. I'm not going to throw out as much now because time limit. Usually if I see the same subject I've done before, I'll immediately move on to something else. This I'm going to kind of go with what I seeing. Like I'll see like a head here, and if it fits in my mind, well, that composition will work in that area, then I'll go ahead and work with some there. It usually takes 2 or 3 objects before a story starts coming in my head, and that's just because I'm not, if I was a good realist artist, I could do a flower and have one object and that would carry the whole story, but I'm not that kind of artist, so usually I have to have something relate, like he would have to relate to some other object in here. Now, I've got no story in my head yet, but I kind of see part of one object. But normally I would throw out the first 3 or 4 things I see just because it seems like the first things that I see are usually, they almost never work out. I think it's just because I'm looking too hard to find things. And if I had longer now, I would probably wipe some of this down and introduce some color, but I'm trying to keep it. Like this is not going to be something that I'm really all that pleased with, or I'm trying to. I don't know if it's easier to answer questions than it is to explain this. I don't know that I can explain it.
You're doing fine. I find this just fascinating because it is so, as Hadi said, counterintuitive to, the normal process of painting, I think.
I've always been more interested in getting whatever it is I need to get into me out. I would say when I started painting, I quit for 25 years, and when I started back, probably the first 60 paintings were all about all this addiction and depression and all the stuff that I dealt with for years. So that's what came out. It's not so much that bad now because I've dealt with a lot of that in my art, but I've always felt like art was a place for me to get these things onto canvas so they don't rattle around in my head forever. But they're not all so heavy now. For a year or two, they were all really heavy, dark paintings. I just had to go through that phase. And sometimes if the story starts coming together, it might come together. I might have the story in my head solidified, but the composition may be off. And usually if I throw something out, it stays in my head. It'll pop up again. If not in this painting, it'll pop up again in another painting. I don't really lose things that way. So far, the only thing I see is him, but
yeah,
there's a lot of empty canvas down here. So that one object's going to establish the scale for the whole thing. So that kind of filters what my mind's going to see down here. I'm not going to see a big, huge object if I've already got him established at that scale. It's mainly filtering through this. I would say the first part's like building up. If you ever looked at static on a TV and you start seeing images in the static, it's kind of what this stage is. A lot of my process is doing this and then stepping back for 20 minutes and just looking at it for a while until I start seeing things come together. Trying to find a bigger brush so I can get rid of some of this space. When I have more time, sometime I'll try to save some of the whiter canvas for my whites, but more often than not, I just go ahead and paint over it later with whites. I've gotten lately where I'll use alkyds for the first 3/4 of the painting, use alkyd oils, and then come back in with oils at the end.
Alkyd oils?
Yeah, I mix them with, they sell alkyd oils where they have, like Fast Matte, Gambling, where they have alkyd mixed in with the oils and they'll dry overnight. Or you can use Galkyd and mix them with regular oils.
And then what's the liquid you added to the canvas?
This is all just solvent. I really don't. It's all.
Okay.
Yeah. This is just in this level. I mean, at this stage, I really don't use this much normally, and this is a really flimsy canvas. And sometimes I'll even just go ahead and coat canvas, and instead of doing what I'm doing now, I'll kind of do the opposite, where I'll have a tone and I'll just wipe away. You know, instead of putting down dark, I'll wipe in light. It's a little more subtle that way, especially if you use like a yellow or a light blue or something, and you come back and do this, and you don't have these heavy lines you have to get rid of earlier. I haven't walked around this one much, so that's one thing that's not the same. I'm kind of seeing this one recline now, but I haven't defined this foreground, so I'm not sure what's going on with him yet. I want to have him popped up on an arm, I think. But that's not enough of a story for me, so something will come in. The main thing with these pieces, I always try to keep the story and the picture as fluid as possible until I'm done. Because if I introduce a new object in, it just pops in the picture. It may change the whole relationship with everything else in there. So if I have in my head solidified, okay, this is the image, and then I go for it too early, then I lose the chances from other things coming in later. And I know there's so much negative down here that something's got to come in down here. I just don't know. I just need to argue. This one may get muddier than I would like initially, but I think I'm going to put some lights in earlier than I normally would, just because I want to establish some of that. But normally I would wait for this to dry a little bit before I did it so it doesn't get so muddy. So I'm starting to see where I want some lights to come in. These are regular oils, but normally I would stick with all alkyds for a while. I don't want to see them on the pillow, but I'm not seeing the rest of it yet. Sometimes I just have to go with what kind of curve or line looks good on the canvas and figure out what it is later. A lot of it is that. A lot of it is just I see where I want to see a certain shape, but I don't know what the shape is. I'll figure out what the shape is, what it represents later on. I just want your eye to move in that direction, even if I don't know why yet. That just felt like it was too dominant. I'm trying to go back into it. But it feels like a normal figure where I would have his arm going. If he's on a pillow, it has his arm going across in front of him. It's so hard to do this quick. Usually they have time to just marinate for a while. But I had to step back at all, which is probably my main problem. So I've been too worried about what it is instead of looking at like the whole overall rhythms in the thing. I'm going to introduce colors in here too early just because I don't have 3 days to do it. A lot of this stuff I wind up wiping right back off. But they'll stay on there, so that really add to it. actually working this way makes it almost impossible to do a commission because I don't know what I'm going to do every time I paint. It has to be something really loose, like someone who's seen a lot of my work and likes pretty much all of it. They may give me like a couple of colors they would like, or really loose, say something like I had the last person I did one for wanted something with her sons and her husband, but that was as that's as specific as she got, so that left me a lot of room to come up with something. But yeah, it makes commissions kind of rough. And I committed to that figure probably quicker than I normally would have because I wanted to go with something while I saw it. And my stuff's not very realistic, so I have a lot of wiggle room when it comes between realism and how I want it to look, the composition on it. At this stage, when I saw form and I was getting it in space, I would probably start considering a light source at that point. And my light sources aren't realistic at all. I might have the light source being someone's face. Where
That's awesome.
they make no, they're usually more symbolic than they are the physical light source. So a lot of times it'll be coming from water or a specific object like a flower or something. So they've always been real symbolic. That's most of my paintings are, I would say, at some level they'll involve allegory or symbolism. They used to all be me on some level.
Oh.
A lot of them are now, but I've been able to back away from it the last few years to where I can, not everything is just always about me. I think I'm right. Making a little more sense to me now. Now that I'm thinking about this being a pillow down here and it's kind of got both arms around it, and it has a little bit more, makes more sense to me. A little bit more involved, more of a story than just someone sleeping next to a pillow. He's got both arms. I don't know if you can see it yet. But he's laying on the pillow and he's got one arm like this and the other arm like around the pillow. This kind of thing just takes a while to bring out.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm thinking about that being just a window really far off in the background, just like a slit in the curtains where you see a little bit of light coming through. For whatever reason, I don't know if that's become my crutch or what, but the light sources have always, they're always backlit or really subtle lit and then one bright light on one side. It's never, I've only done a couple of straight daylight pictures. I can't make them interesting. I've never been able to.
No, light tends to be much more interesting. Yeah.
But I can't do a straight
Shadow.
daylight.
It's all about shadows.
I wish I could do it though. I mean, I wish. I quit trying to do that though. I've quit trying to figure it out. I think it took me a few years I used to think I was an expressionist the way I painted, and then I realized later on that it was all about story. Which, instead of the way it looked, it's always been story driven or symbolism driven. It's always meant more to me. Even though my favorite painters were expressionists, I think that's the one thing everybody has that they bring to the table is their own story. You got that, you can come up with skills later. You know, if you don't have your own point of view to get across, then it doesn't matter how much skill you have. But the way I look at it anyway.
You're right. No.
That's why I'm not worried about all the digital. until a computer can come up with a good story, then I'm okay. Because they can get better than me visually, but until they come up with a storyline and a meaning behind it, I guess I have a job. Well, not really. I don't really get paid a whole lot. But I have a day job.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
This may be the way you do it from now on. This is looking awesome.
Hey. This would be normally when I sit back for a minute and then I would come back and just attack the whole thing all over again. But I'm trying to keep some of this, it doesn't go dark completely on me. I'm thinking of colors I could use, but they're not going to really work at this stage. I'll try them, but they're just going to melt into the rest of the colors. That helps me out a little bit because it's got more space to it now. I think that may be into another room in the background. A lot of the paintings I did for the first year, I think were just figures on space. I never had them set. I mean, they were just on blank color, just black color. It took me a while before I started actually putting them in space at all. That shoulder's way too. I like them hunched over, but that just doesn't make much sense at all. I think he's okay. I can get the edge of the bed in. I'm just I'm at a loss for this part down here. Anyway. If I had a long time to do this, I would probably have this image in my head and just wipe over this and try to redraw the arm really quick. A lot of times, if I try to do something 3 or 4 times, I give up and then come back an hour later, I can draw it in 5 seconds. Because I guess your mind remembers how many times you tried to do it and back off and try it one time. I tried to figure out how I was going to show all this, and I just decided not to even try to do it beforehand because I knew I would. It's going to be a matter of trying to do it. I've never done it this quick, and I've never tried to explain to anybody while I was doing it.
Well, we thank you for doing this and trying this, and we appreciate it.
No, I'm glad to do it. I mean, it gives me. I have really bad social anxiety too, so it gives me a chance to try to work through all that. That was one of my biggest problems my entire life is I had bad social anxiety, and back then it was just nobody knew what it was, so I just drank just to cover it up, and then that went through about 25 years of addiction and depression. And so I gave up painting. I painted when I was 20, and I gave it up for 20 years. And then when I started back, I just started nonstop. I think from the first year I've been painting 7 years now. I've got about 350, I think, finished pieces.
Wow, that's quite excellent. Yeah, art is healing. Art is therapy. Art is everything.
If I don't paint at least once a week, I start going downhill pretty fast. It's kind of my release valve for everything. Even if I don't know something's going on, when I start painting, it'll come out.
Yep. The stars totally realign for me when I start doing art.
I think it's the only time I really feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Yes, me too. The rest of the time, I feel like I'm just going through the motions.
I wish I'd have done this, 25 years ago when everybody was saying you can't make a living at it. So I gave it up for 20 years. If I had been doing it by now, I might be able to, maybe not full time, but maybe I could work 3 days a week and make the rest of my money doing this. That would be my dream. If I could just only work 3 days and the other 2 days be covered by art, I'd be happy. But my first goal was for it to pay for itself, and it took a couple of years, but I'm able to pay for all my supplies and pay for storage. I got to pay $100-something a month for storage, air conditioned storage for all the stuff.
Well, congratulations. That's fantastic.
Yeah, just being able to pay for all your supplies is a huge step.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big one. And now I'm able to, I don't even mix my money together. I think everything I get from art, I put in a separate PayPal account. I pay all my art expenses from that one account. That's how I can tell if I'm paying for everything, because I don't use all the money. This down here is what would make this piece if I could figure it out. It's going to come together or not come together based on what's down here.
There you go.
Yeah, but the color doesn't make any sense. It needs to be light, but it doesn't need to be that same. Then it looks like the light shining through and hit the pillow. But yeah, I need a light color down there. And when the pieces are this loose, one of the things that it's not a trick. I'm sure everybody does it to some extent in their pieces. Is just choosing what you want, what I want you to focus in on, and not have everything equally detailed all the way through. And most of my details are really loose, so they look accidental anyway, even though they're not. But if I can tie together a couple of spots that are detailed enough for you to look at them, then it'll bring you around the piece more. But all that kind of evolves at different times. I don't see enough in him for the story yet. I'll take a lot of pictures when I'm working too, usually because if the phone has the same effect as, as stepping back, you can see the bigger picture better instead of focusing on these details. And I hadn't been stepping back, which is always a mistake. I don't like his shape at all, but I don't know that I'm going to do anything about it right now. I'm kind of throwing too many colors at this thing too, because I've tried to, especially lately, I've tried to limit myself, especially early on in the piece, to two, maybe three colors, and then white and maybe black to mix in. But it gets too complicated too soon. It doesn't hold together.
Now, you mentioned early on that you didn't prime this because, and I thank you so that we could really see clearly. But do you usually start with a white canvas or do you have
It back and forth. I mean, sometimes, usually the most when I'm planning on pieces, I might have three colors I really want to use. So I might use the lightest color, prime the canvas with it. But then I still work into it when it's wet most of the time so that I can wipe the way I went in with lines, I'll wipe off lines, like with a paper towel. I'll draw into it with a paper towel while it's primed. Because, I mean, with this stage, I would usually probably go ahead and cover over everything just to because it's too distracting with all this. It's reading as lights, and they're probably not going to be there later on. But usually, I mean, it's probably half and half. A lot of them I go into, but I'll wind up, when I get kind of the squiggly stuff everywhere, I might go over the top of it really light, just to deaden everything, but I can still see the framework where I've seen the figures in it.
I see.
I'm impressed that you can see people in the squiggles.
That's all I see are people, and that's it. Out of all my paintings I've done.
Now.
Yeah, but he's going to be. He's in a weird position. That's the kind of thing where if I could hold it in my mind and see it, then later on when I do more solid in, I can, then I can bring out with color, bring out the stuff more. I haven't even thought about color as far as solid things. I haven't gotten any of it to where I want you to see it. I can tell what it is, so it's good enough for me now, but it's not where I would want it to be. And some of them, especially smaller pieces, if I get the right lines within an hour, then comes in really simple, it can do that, but it can hold up, as a finished composition that quickly. But usually when I try to do that, when I try to
So
stick
would
to
you
it,
normally leave this and then come back to it?
normally I would, but I'm not, right, this was only done for this. That's why I
Mm.
didn't even get like a really good canvas, because I knew I was probably not gonna do a good enough job to be able to come back and work on it later. But when I do something like this and I spend enough time, I'll remember that pose later, and it might pop up in another piece. But it'll pop up in a better version, and my mind will have had time to rearrange stuff. So none of it's really lost. But normally with this one, with something like this, I'm gonna come back and I might cut in the lights where I want the lights. Because none of these colors are where I would leave them. It's not how I normally work, because I wouldn't throw so much color into it, but I was trying to go ahead and establish some forms first once I saw it, which is not, that's not normally what I do either. Usually I'll let them sit there for a while and decide if I want to keep them on there. And it's especially hard to do this on video because I need, yeah, because it's got such a glare
There
on
we
it.
go. We can see the whole thing.
No glare at all. I'm not having a problem.
No,
I was trying to look
we
at
can
it.
see it just fine.
Yeah.
One thing might help, now that I'm looking at it from a distance, and I usually wouldn't do this until much later on. Since I'm seeing the stuff, I'm going to go ahead and run with it a little bit. Get the right color. And I'm still using thinner here. I usually wouldn't use it this far into it. If I was going in to put lines in later, I would use a different medium besides that. But I can pick out some parts where I want. Or I want some solid lines. And usually I'm thinking clearly about reds and blues and what I want to go backwards and what, but I'm not now. I'm kind of just using colors just to put something down. But usually even my blacks, I'll keep in mind whether I want it to recede or go back. Some of this stuff you can just go ahead and just put in a couple of lines. But I wouldn't do it everywhere because I don't want equal width. So
Wow.
you just choose places you want to come out. And then you start seeing stuff a little better. Too much. But some sections I'll come back with some sharp lines and stuff that I really want to define. That's usually drawing a line between what I want to define and what I want to keep. A lot of stuff I'll come back and rough it up with a big brush just to get rid of, it being too in focus. That's almost too much. My tea's ready. I don't know what that is.
I think it's Sloan's cell phone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. That's not something that would stay there for long. I was really working on it. I wouldn't leave it that white. It just doesn't make any sense. Ooh, that didn't work at all. This is pretty much what happens when I work. You make a mistake, obliterate something, you got to decide whether you want to bring it back where it was, or just move on to something else. Yeah, messed up out. Probably need to switch brushes. I'm not even going to get to the part where I would switch gears and go in. Once I've got it defined, then it's kind of just gradually creep in and fix the places you want to fix and leave alone a whole lot of it. Because this is the only part that I really do differently than anybody that I know, really. I mean, near the end, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. And I still don't. If I was taking my time with this, I would have serious issues with the flow of this up here. I'm not really sure what's going on with it.
Patrick, I have a question. When you start doing the kind of scribbly thing at the beginning, do you have an image in mind that you're going to paint, or does the image come out of the scribbles?
Image comes out of the scribbles. If I have any kind of idea in my head of what I want to do, every time I've ever tried it, it just comes out cartoony and stiff. I can't. That's the weakness of the whole thing, is that I can't function that way. I can't. If I have an image in my head, the most I can have in my head is maybe I want to use these two colors. And other than that, if I start, if I go in and I have any kind of idea in my head, I think even the ones that I've done, like when my dad died, I knew sooner or later I was going to be painting it because I just couldn't do anything else. When I sat down to paint, that came out, but even that wasn't. And it came out, the image in the same room, so it came out fairly as realistic as I get, but even then, it's still not planned out. I've never been able to do it that way.
That's incredible.
Well, that's the only way. That's the only way I can do it. Otherwise, I don't have a story, and it doesn't interest me. Because really, what I want to do is I want to see the story, and I want to see the story come together. And once I see the story pretty much together in my head, at that point, I just want to get it done and get it off the easel before I ruin it. At that point, once the story's there, I'm not really.
Finish it.
The fun part's gone. Then you just gotta, get it.
Make it look
Get it
like
off
what
the
it's supposed to.
I dropped a big glob of paint on the floor. Looks like I stabbed somebody.
Oh,
Right roll.
oh no.
I've
Now,
been tracking this.
is that the normal size that your work is?
It is now. My big size over the last 3 or 4 years, standard used to be 18 by 24, and this would be like a big one would be like this. Now, back then I was doing 50 pieces a year. Now I'm doing like 20 because they're all this big. Or I've got one over here at the start on. It's like 36 by 48, and they take longer, but it's just because there's more real estate to cover on it. I like working bigger, but it took me forever to get comfortable. 18 by 24 was my standard size for about 2 years. I liked it, but it just, after a while, I didn't have room to do what I wanted to, and I couldn't get loose enough on it. You probably couldn't see much. Usually when I'm doing it, I'm standing way back and using the very end of the brush. I mean, I'm not focused now, so I'm way too close to this thing because I'm thinking about being in the camera, probably. Normally,
doing
I'm
great.
standing way back. Usually I'm standing way back here doing, using the very end of the brush doing this. This one would eventually work. It's just take a lot of finesse. Really need to go back and add a lot of random stuff in it so I can find some more things.
It's actually better for us when you're back like that.
Is it?
Yeah, we can see more.
We can
of
see
you.
what you're doing while you're doing it instead of after you move.
This is, oh, staying off on that side.
Is he reading a book? Looks like he's reading a book.
It's going to be like clutching a pillow. Like the pillow is, one of it's here and one arm's wrapped around it, the other arm's coming up below here, but you can't tell because the colors are off. I don't know if I can go in with the color or not. And a lot of this, even when I'm done, people still won't completely see, and that's fine.
I think that's normal.
Yeah.
A lot of them will see what they need to see. Funny enough, that's
We have an artist in our group that paints these very detailed paintings, and I always want to know what the meaning is behind things, but he doesn't tell me.
yeah. I tell people personal stories now. I didn't used to because I didn't want anyone to. I figured if I couldn't get the feeling, get the story across in the painting, then whatever they saw was fine with me. I'm not going to tell them what to see.
Mhm.
And usually they'll see what they need to.
Yeah.
I used to, if someone, even when they bought a piece, I wouldn't tell them what it was until they had lived with the piece for a few weeks or a month or so, and they had their own ideas what it was about, and then I would tell them what I had in mind while I was doing it.
Yeah, but then they might argue with you. No, it's not.
But you're right. I think people could see different things.
Definitely.
They see what they want to see.
And this one's not as complicated as I like them. I usually like to have 2 or maybe 3 different focal points in it. Would be a person, an object, and another object, or 2 people and a person, where you can get all these relationships in your head. And it's just one person at the moment, so it's not really. If I was working on it, I wouldn't expect it to come together until I had something else, another relationship in it, or another object that related to the other 2 or something.
I like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I may do it just because I've been working on this I may go ahead and completely change some of it. I'm seeing a whole different direction I could go in it. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Okay.
Usually this early on in a piece, I'll go ahead and go whatever direction I see. But kind of why I try not to settle on the image too early. Because this one would make more sense visually if I could get it to work. And a lot of times when I put something in the background here, I'm not really going to leave it all the time. I'm just trying to isolate the figure so I can kind of work on it. I think a key to a lot of these is that when I start seeing images that I can relate to, that I kind of remind me of things in my past, and I can start seeing it better in my head.
Hey, Patrick, what do you see now?
A woman,
Okay, good. I thought so.
yeah,
A man
Yeah,
went
like
away and a lady came.
Now it's a lady.
she's got like her back to you. I wanted her holding the kid, but I can't. Haven't gotten that in there yet. Kind of grandmother image I've had appear in a lot of paintings. But actually, I could make it younger. And it wouldn't. It's still worse than this one. As long as the main thing is I want to face in the window. The window would probably be bigger at this point. I'd rather it be.
You're squirting the paint directly on the canvas.
That's it.
Awesome.
Well, I hadn't decided which way she's facing at this point because she could go either way because it's just a silhouette. Like if I was taking a piece like this really far, I think the light in the window would be the other object that I would have relating to her. Instead of having another object, it would just be another light source. Usually that's, if it's strong enough, it's another, just like another character in the piece.
This is just really fascinating to watch you work. Thank you.
No, I'm glad you can see something in it because it's hard for me to explain it. It's just
I think you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Patrick, your way of doing it is amazing. The structure comes on its own.
when I'm usually doing it, it comes together and falls apart so many times that it's just. Normally I wouldn't care and I would just keep reworking it and changing it and reworking it and find it. Even though I knew I wasn't going to have a finished image. But this is how it is. I mean, usually, instead of me carrying one image all the way through, this is more likely what's going to happen 90% of the time when I work. I may change the image a week later. If it doesn't work, I'll keep working with it. And the story may work, but it may bother me because this figure may be maybe 6 inches over too far. And I'll just completely paint over it, but I'll remember this composition and it might pop up in another painting. And I don't remember it on purpose, it just sticks with me.
Isn't it fascinating, Sloan, that it can go in a different direction?
Mhm.
You can't do that.
Well,
Well, I can't anyway.
No, Shelley is a lampwork beater glass artist, and I'm a potter. So asking you questions, but I'm just finding this mesmerizing.
Usually when mine goes wrong, it gets dumped in water and shatters.
Mine too. Mine too.
There's no reworking it most of the time.
If they're bad enough, there's a few that I've had to keep coming back so many times, and I knew they were just fatally flawed that I wound up just cutting them up so I wouldn't come back to them anymore. I knew as long as they were still in one piece that I would keep trying to fix them.
Fascinating.
But it took me a while to realize the most important thing when I work is to not get committed to it completely. I just have to stay uncommitted to the image all the way to the very end because it'll change. And if I'm not open to it, like if I think this part here just fabulous, and I've worked the whole painting around that one piece that I think is great. It won't stick together. It won't be coherent at all. It won't stick together. You'll have this really great piece. None of this will relate to it.
Hmm.
So if I go rework this, I got to rework the whole piece. That's probably the hardest part, is not getting committed to any part of it. It changes fast, and if I don't keep up with it, if I don't see it changing, I'm too busy working on this piece, and I realize it doesn't even relate at all to this piece, and I've lost it. Now I'm just making marks. I'm not even paying attention. That's not good. But even when I spend this much time on reworking something, it stays, it builds up the layers underneath what I'm doing, so it still building color, even if it's not the right object. It's building, layers underneath what I'm working. I'm just trying to see if I can even see the basic shapes to rework. I'd like for her to be sitting at the foot of the bed, but I can't really picture her in my head.
All right, Patrick, we're gonna have to wrap it up. You keep working because we have just a couple of things to do. And I want you to promise, if you finish this, that you'll email Hadi or us a picture of it, just so we can see where this journey took you.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it, son.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been fascinating.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick. You managed to do 2 paintings. You were worried about one, you did 2 paintings.
2 paintings in one.
Another hour, I'd have done 3 more, probably.
It was very enjoyable.
Fun to see how it evolved. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anybody have any last minute questions for Patrick or comments?
Thank you. Amazing style, loose and very different.
Yes. Pretty fantastic.
Okay.
All right. Do we want to hear about Artist of the Month?
Please.
Okay.
And we also had the exhibiting member.
Oh, yes. Well, let's start with that because our exhibiting member was voted in. So welcome. Is it Shamitra?
Yeah.
Yes. I wasn't sure if I was going to say it right.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yay!
Yeah, so exciting. We have so many new exhibiting members this year. Very fun. All right, so for Artist of the Month, we have a tie for first place between Julie Klein and Patrick. So the abstract tree and the photograph of, oh gosh, I've just blanked out. Yes.
Cathedral Rock.
Cathedral Rock. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy.
And second place was the Crazy Bead Lady.
Beautiful.
And third place is Saikat Chowdhury. So congratulations,
What
everyone.
was the third place one?
It was the one with it was kind of a
It's a-
gray sketch, like a wall and a man with a cart, and he's wearing like that orange.
Yes, the
Really
almost
striking.
monochromatic with like a touch of red.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
a
reddish
charcoal painting.
orange.
Thank you. Congratulations, everyone.
It would be
Fantastic.
nice next time we announce them, just share the image. That would be
I can
nice.
share the images if they give me permission.
Loved the tree, Julie.
Was it really hard for you guys to vote? Because I had to look at them for a good half an hour before I could vote.
Yeah.
And I didn't even vote for myself this time.
That you sharing, Shelley?
What's that?
Who's sharing right now?
Oh, am I? I don't think I'm sharing.
No, we have the spotlight on. I don't know if that,
I still see the painting. Oh, there we go.
there you go.
Is this,
I have
This
no
is
idea.
not me.
what I'm doing.
this
No,
is Sarah.
It's me. I don't want to be doing that.
Oh,
I have never done this before.
let's see. Can I try?
Yes. Okay. I don't stop share. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, should I turn off the recording?
Up to you.
Okay.
Yes, I think you should.
We
Oh,
should check back on it after we're done with the meeting.
True. Good point. Okay.
I don't seem to be able to share. I don't seem to be able to share. So
Huh. It says.
Oh. privacy. Blah, blah. Yeah, I don't, for some reason, I can't get it to share my
Okay,
screen.
now try.
Oh, can you see Cathedral Rock shimmering around? No?
No.
Mm-mm. I think it's me.
Okay. Well, you'll get, Hottie, we'll try that next time.
Yes. Honey is always pushing us to do more.
Okay, Patrick, we want to see one more time, please.
The lady's gone.
Yeah, she's there.
She's subtle. She's very subtle.
Never would.
Gone.
I think I got a better idea how to wind up now.
Shy. She's shy.
She's shy.
But I'll get it to you.
Oh, now she's facing the window.
I see a window.
She's facing the window now.
Yeah, the window's very clear. Okay.
Yeah, she's facing the window now.
Yeah.
It was hard to vote. There were so many good things to vote for.
Wasn't
Yeah.
it?
You're right, Jeannie. What a wonderful problem we had.
Right.
Yes.
I wanted I love the tree and the poppies and the
Yeah.
man
I did. I love
And the jewelry.
Carol piece, the
and
lady.
the choker. Some of them I wanted to see them closer. It was like I was looking at like any of them could have been. Yeah, I like them all.
Look at the depth you've created in what, an hour?
Yeah, it's amazing.
It may turn into something. This canvas is so thin that I'm not used to working with it. Yeah.
That's
Well,
just
that's-
paper towel you're using?
Yeah, I use paper towels and really cheap brushes a lot of the time.
Because they get so scruffy so fast.
Well, they make a lot of, especially if you wad them, they make a lot of random, with tiny little specks of paint
Right.
sticking in the spots. It's made really not really interesting marks. And I'll use these 98-cent chip brushes for a lot of stuff too. I've got good brushes that I like, but I usually save them till the end when I'm trying to do specific marks.
Can't beat the right tool for the job.
There he goes again. Paint on the canvas. Love this.
I know, I think I could maybe paint like this.
Yeah, it makes me want to paint again.
Mine would look like mud, but
I did acrylics when I first started 20 years ago, and I painted that way for about 5 years, and I gave up to 20 when I started back. I just switched to oils because I was tired of ruining brushes. And I thought I just wanted to be able to blend, but after I used them for a while, it wasn't really what I liked about it.
Oh, it sure ruins the brush because it dries fast.
I just like being able to walk away from the painting for a couple of hours and come back and still be able to work the same spot without it being dried up and I can't touch it. But I think when this one comes back, I have some time to work on it after it's dried. I go back into it, I'll be able to salvage more of it. Right now it's so wet, it's really hard to do anything to it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Patrick.
No problem. I'll see what I
you.
come up with the next few days.
Okay, great. We appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
thanks for coming. Thanks for voting.
Thank you.
Hold